Okay, welcome back to another episode of Kaun Banega Unreal Engine Expert. So, in this episode, we are going to start building our game. We're going to start doing it from scratch, and we're going to get some of the landscaping right. So, I actually want to run you through a series on landscaping. There are two parts to landscaping. One is creating the exteriors, and the other is creating the interiors. So, we're going to learn both of those in this episode. So, let's get started. First thing we're going to do, and you guys are probably bored of this level already, is we are going to create a new level. And we're going to create a blank level so that we can start from scratch. So you go to File, you click on New Level, right? And we are just going to create an empty level. I'm not going to save anything that I've done. So as you can see, it's an empty level. Now, the reason you can't see anything is because there is nothing in it. And most importantly, there are no lights. So, you basically have nothing to work with. So I'm going to change the mode of the game or of the viewport from lit to unlit. I still can't see anything because there's still, no lights, no objects, nothing. There's nothing in this scene. So what I'm going to do is first create a landscape. Let's create the exteriors first. So I'm going to go to modes and I'm going to click on landscape. Right? So this is the template of what the landscape is going to look like. Unreal's telling me, well, this is where we're going to create the landscape, and I'm just going to open this up a little bit. Let's just create this at 0, 0, 0. Let's create this at the origin, at the middle part. The middle part should be in the middle, and let's make it a 7 into 7. Let's make it a small landscape. Let's not make it too big, right? Because what's the point of that? And I'm just going to press create. It's going to take a while, and as you can see, we have this nice little, landscape style thing. Now what I'm going to do is just press play. Whoops. We can't play yet because there's no light and you won't be able to see anything. But this is generally what it's going to look like when it's unlit. Let me show you what it looks like when it's lit, right? So if I go to lit mode, you cannot see anything. This is just this is my cursor, so you shouldn't be seeing that. But in general, there is nothing you can see in lit mode because there are absolutely no lights. So what we're going to do is actually bring a single light in. So we'll go back, we'll go to our basic panel, and we will look for lights. There are many types of lights, and I'll tell you a quick difference between the directional light and every other type of light. The directional light is used to create a sun. Right? In every world, especially when it's outdoors, you need either a sun or a moon. You need the ambient lighting. Now, the thing about directional light and the thing about the sun, if you guys have studied any physics whatsoever, is that the rays are parallel. The sun creates parallel rays of light, so it's like that light goes on to infinity. So it doesn't matter where you place it because the light is going to continue to go on till infinity. So I'm going to drag a directional light in here, and as you can see, it's suddenly started lighting up the scene. It doesn't matter whether I put it up or down because it's coming from infinity, right? So I'm just going to create that. But one thing I can do is I can click on this and I can move it left or right, and that would, you can't see it right now, but it will create sun rays where, if we had an interior building, the sun would come through that opening, right? We'll see all of this in a bit. So we have this directional light. Now let's see if we can play. Now as you can see, players in, can't see the sun, you can't see the source of the directional light, but you know it's coming in, and you can tell the general direction by the shadow, right? So whatever direction the shadow's in, the opposite direction is where the sun rays are coming from, right? So the directional light is a sun, and we have this little landscape which we are roaming around on. I'm press the escape key to leave the viewport, and now what we're going to do is we're going to make the scene a little better, right? We're going to first make the lighting a little better. So I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it lighting, right? This is just the ambient lighting of the scene that I'm going to have. So I'm going to move the directional light inside. So as you can see, it's inside this. We have the landscape and the landscape gizmo. The landscape gizmo is basically a way to control the landscape. So we have the landscape and the landscape gizmo outside, and we have the lighting, the directional light inside the lighting folder. Now if you see the details for light, you'll see it's different from the details for a mesh. You have things like the intensity of light, and you can make it really intense, or you can make it really, dull. You can do a lot of things. You can change the color. You can change the temperature. We're going to go through all that in a little bit. First thing we're going to do now is to create a sky. So we'll just type sky, and there's this cool thing called BP Sky Sphere. Now, whenever you see the words BP or the letters BP in Unreal, it means that's a blueprint. Now, you might think, well, isn't blueprint code? How am I able to have an object that's a blueprint in my world outliner? Well, the truth is, blueprints can be anything. And we learn a little more about blueprints, but right now you have to know that Unreal has created a default blueprint called the sky sphere, which we are going to use. So I'm just going to drag this in, and suddenly you can see that there looks like this nice little evening sky. But one of the things about this blueprint is that it requires, and this is a very specific type of blueprint, right? So you might get confused thinking that everything in Unreal is so strange, but it's only this one thing. So this blueprint, the sky sphere, requires a sun. You need to show the sky sphere where the sun is. So in the sky sphere, if you go to details, in the directional light actor, which is what's the sun, and you can only have one sun ideally, you click on this and you click on directional light. This is the directional light we already had. We're going to click on this, and as you can see, the direction and the location of the sun have now changed to where the light is. So if I just press refresh material, right, you'll see that the sky has completely changed, and we are now able to get the direction of the sun, which is, it's there, it's all the way there. It maps roughly the direction of your directional light. So if I move this, and I'll show you how to move this, right, I'm just click on the rotation tool, right, I'm going to move this, right, I'm going to make it there, and I'm going to move that there. Now if I go to my BP sky sphere and click on refresh material again, then the sun would have moved to where it's supposed to move, so that the direction where it casts its light is parallel, right? It should be straight ahead, and you'll get the hang of this, right? If you guys are doing this along with me, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not doing this along with me, you're wasting your time. You might as well watch Netflix, right? So as you can see, it's perfectly parallel to where it is, because now the BP sky sphere has been given a directional light actor. So this is step one, this is step two. So we've got two things done. The next thing we're going to do is that we are going to create a skylight. I'm just going to drag and drop the skylight into this. Now, what is this skylight? Right? The skylight essentially takes, it's called SLS captured scene, which is basically, it takes a snapshot of the entire scene, which is a snapshot of all the clouds and the sun, and reflects it to the ground, towards the ground. Right? That's what the skylight does. It's not the most important thing, but it gives a little bit of realism to your floor. So I'm going to drag the skylight into the lighting. I'm going to drag the sky sphere into the lighting, and I'm just going to close the lighting because we don't need it anymore. Right? It looks interesting now. So I'm just going to play and show you what it looks like. And as you can see, there's a sun. It's in your face, and you can see this little default character basking in the glory of the sun. Right? So one thing you need to understand is that when Unreal can't find a material, it gives you this checkerbox material. It says, well, there's no material on this landscape, so we're going to give you this checkerbox thing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put a material on the landscape. So we're going to go into our starter content. We are going to go into materials, and we are going to say, well, ground grass. Ground grass is interesting. So I'm just going to go to landscape, go down, right? Just go to the details panel. And like I said, there's always a landscape material. So I am going to drag this ground grass into the landscape. Right? So as you can see, and this might take some time on your computer because I'm running a pretty fast one. You might see this word on the bottom right called compiling shaders. Shaders are just your textures, right? So it's just saying that, well, we are compiling where all the textures are supposed to be, what's there, where they're supposed to be, and basically it just compiles all the textures. So I'm just going to press play. And as you can see, we have this nice little lush field that we've created that we can move around in. Right? Looks very, 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 very interesting. Cool. So now this, in real life, no landscape is ever this flat. There's obviously, some amount of variation in the height map of a landscape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the landscape. I'm going to go into landscape mode, and now my landscape has changed, right? What used to be there earlier, that generator landscape, has changed into something else. So in the landscape editor, there are many different tools, and if you're on a later version of Unreal, this might be in a different place, but it's exactly the same thing. So I'm going to click on the sculpt tool, right? And I'm going to make the brush a little smaller, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to raise the floor, right? See? We're going to basically make a few mountains. right? And as you go farther, you see that the mountains look different, and as you go closer, you see the mountains look more accurate. That's an Unreal thing. Unreal has some mathematics at the back end that make sure that we don't show the most perfect version until you get too close, because otherwise you're wasting computing resources. So I'm just gonna make some hills here. Yeah, it's there. And I am going to make some valleys. To make valleys, which is the opposite of hills, hold the shift key, right? And you create a valley. So as you can see, there's this nice little place that you can fall down through. Right? Maybe we'll add some water in there later. Right? So this is interesting. And there are many other tools, right? There's the ramp tool, and I'll let you play around with all these tools. They do exactly what they say they do. There's some, I'll just show you the ramp tool, for example. The ramp tool takes two places, 1 and 2, and it creates a ramp. If you press add ramp, it creates a ramp, which is like a slope between place 1 and place 2, right? I don't generally use the ramp tool, but it's one of the tools that are available. So if I press play now, you'll see that this doesn't look so nice because of the way the ramp's done it, but obviously as we go ahead in this series, there's going to be many ways we're going to do landscape. We're going to make this much better. We're going to make the terrains a little better too. So as you can see, it's my own little landscape. Now one strange thing is that the player can't climb this. Like I'm not able to climb this because I made it too high. There is a limit to how high a player can climb automatically or keep walking automatically, and you can change that in the player settings in the player blueprint. But we'll come to all of that a little later, right? We have to find out what's creating this player in the first place. So we'll do all of that, as we progress through this course. So I'm going to press escape, get out of the landscape mode, and I'm going to call it a day for this episode. In the next episode, we're going to add in a little bit of foliage and make our sky a little bit better. That's it for this episode. Catch you on the next.